and we're doing FAFSAs. And so that's that big old 5-letter word that we're probably going to get into today.
Yeah.
I was working with 2 students. One student beside me, their dad was like a supervisor of the coal mine, 6 digits.
Sure.
The person beside me didn't probably know where their next meal was coming from.
Yeah. Okay, students and parents, I get it. College is expensive. The FAFSA is complicated. Who actually understands financial aid? Well, today's guest does. In fact, he has spent the last 16 years in higher education. The last 8 of those, he's been specifically with an organization that helps students pay for college. Who's our guest today? Let's get into the episode and find out. Welcome to Me and Poverty, a podcast about breaking barriers, building bridges, and changing lives, one story at a time. Today's guest is someone very special to me. We've been in the trenches together in my old office. He's a financial aid expert. I think many others in Appalachia specifically would agree to that. He is involved in 11 different counties. He speaks from 8th, 9th graders to graduating seniors. Part of the reason why I wanted him on today is specifically talk to our parents that are maybe a little confused about financial aid. Financial aid, it's no secret. It's difficult. It's difficult to comprehend. It changes. I could say a 5-letter word and make a lot of people upset. So today I want to talk about my good friend Brandon. He is actually from Ashland, Kentucky. He's got 2 kiddos. When he's not busy at work, he's always watching UK or the Cincinnati Reds. Brandon's got 16 years of helping people figure out college. How are they going to afford it? So I'll hush right there. Brandon, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. Exciting to be here. I was with some freshmen today and I was like, yeah, I got to get home after here and get on a podcast for today. I'm getting to do a podcast. So I was so excited about this and I appreciate the invitation. I really do.
Hopefully I earned you some street cred, man. I don't know. These kids heard you were on a podcast.
Need it. And actually, I was with some students yesterday and they were like, Brandon, you're kind of like an adult, but you're one of us. And I think that was the biggest compliment that I've ever got from a senior in high school. So I'm going to take every bit of it.
Yep. And I'll tell you this. I was with my in-laws the other day and, you know, they're retired. They retired early in their early 50s. And we were just talking about kids these days, you know. Mm-hmm. My father-in-law had the nerve to look at me and mention the word Riz. I don't know what that word, I don't know.
Yeah, and Riz. Yeah.
My wife compliments her mom's necklace and goes, Mom, you have drip.
Yes.
What is this, man? What happened? Like, when did I become the old guy?
It catches up real quick for us. It really does.
Yeah, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit. What would you say is your relationship with poverty?
Kind of giving a little bit of background about myself. I grew up in the tri-state area of West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. Middle income family. I think it would be okay for me to say with my mom and dad. When I was really young, just my dad worked. And then my mom ended up going to work a little bit later once I got to kindergarten. I always had clothes. I had shoes on, but it might not have been that name brand, you know, and once that middle school time hits, you're like, oh my, I need a pair of Nikes or I need something like that. And so I did a lot of comparison. But one thing about my family is I knew that we never wanted for anything. We always had the necessities. And I've always appreciated that. My real turn on poverty, honestly, happened when I took this job as a KHEAA outreach counselor. I was very blessed. I think that would be the best word about getting to work and serve. And I'm going to use the word serve probably so much today because I get to do my calling as an outreach counselor. I truly feel that. And I get to literally serve Eastern Kentucky. And I know there's so many stereotypes that Eastern Kentucky gets filled with. Honestly, the stereotypes are not true. But one thing that is true is there is a lot of poverty. And in areas when I would go out in the rural parts of the counties. Not that I was shell shocked, but I never saw homes that were lived in, but also like, how in the world are they not condemned? I had to check myself. I really did, because I knew that I had nice clothes, and how was I going to be received?
Sure.
Like, it really did concern me. And I was very concerned of coming into these regions, like trying to talk about opportunities when some of them have no idea about the opportunities, but also family is something that is so strong in Eastern Kentucky. And I love that. And to fast forward to 8 years now being an outreach counselor, I'm part of their family. They would go to bat for me, and I love that. I wasn't brought up that way to, one way or another for the people to be like, well, I'm better than someone, or I wasn't brought up that. My mom and dad never taught me that. I came in there and they just started to love on me.
Yeah.
And I think what really allowed that to happen is I was loving on them. And I was like, I'm not coming from mightier than thou or holier than thou. I was just like, hey, been there, done that. Let's
Yeah.
talk education. Let's talk opportunity. And what's really neat, and I don't know if this happens everywhere. When I was in high school, there were so many cliques. There
Sure.
was this group. I've noticed in my high schools, and I could say literally every high school from Lawrence County all the way down to Pike County, Knott, Wolf, Breathitt, Morgan, McGoffin, Elliott. Yes, there's groups, but everybody is hanging out together. It fascinates me. It's like, yeah, this person may not have a lot of money. This person may be on Medicaid. This person may be receiving food stamps. And the next person may, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give a perfect example. We're doing FAFSAs. And so that's that big old 5-letter word that we're probably going to get into today. I was working with 2 students. One student beside me, their dad was like a supervisor of the coal mine, 6 digits.
Sure.
The person beside me didn't probably know where their next meal was coming from.
Yeah.
But here was the thing that, like, it blew me away. They were best friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, that would not have happened when I was in high school. And I hate
Yeah.
to say that. It almost hurts now that, man, why were we like that
That's
several
right.
years ago?
That's right.
But I think Eastern Kentucky and Appalachia is very unique because of that. It is family oriented, the 606, as a
That's
lot of
right.
people call it. And it just, that was really eye opening to poverty. And then especially when we've had this flooding that's
That's right.
happened a couple of years ago, and then just recently,
Yeah.
when you have so many that are displaced, and you hear that, oh, my high schools are being used as shelters. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. I am not used to that. And I honestly, it makes me respect the region even more. I think there's some things that around the United States may look and say, well, that's just Eastern Kentucky. But I've never seen a stronger group in my entire life.
There's a saying, it might be John Maxwell, I'm not sure. That's coming to mind for some reason, but talks about the saying, people don't really care how much you know until they know you care.
Amen.
And
Yeah.
that is something that stuck with me. Even my time as a elementary school basketball coach, my time as a financial aid director, my time as director of enrollment management. So when I oversaw admissions and financial aid, I got to see you at both points of that
Yes.
in my
Yes.
career. Very grateful to have you come out and help us during FAFSA time.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate
And
it.
the majority of our students were first generation. Just to get them onto campus
Yeah.
is a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
then I'm thinking, all right, they're here.
Yeah.
How do I keep them here?
Exactly.
Especially they're making an investment more so than even your traditional college student, right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
they've got families struggling at home that they could be
100%.
helping.
Yes.
And I saw a lot of that, and the community aspect is everything. And
Yes,
I've
it
talked
is.
a lot about that on this podcast, and definitely appreciate you bringing that up. You're fantastic at connecting with that generation that are about to leave high school, go off into college. What's made you so good at your job? why are you just the perfect person to help someone with a fast food? Why do you think you've seen so much success in what you're doing, Brandon?
First and foremost, I contribute it all to God. I have told so many people in the last 8 years that I have never had a stressful day at work. I've never had a bad day. I get to live out my calling. And I've told that to students. I've told that to counselors. Shoot, I've even told it to principals.
I sort of say you
And
probably told it to me in my office because it
I'm
sounds
sure,
familiar.
I'm sure. And I mean, it almost gets me emotional
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I may put in a lot of hours in the fall, but I don't feel it.
True.
It's so weird, and I love getting up in the morning and saying, guess what? I get to go to another school. I get to work with another group of students,
Yeah.
and I've been able to establish some wonderful relationships over time. Part of that is because it is my calling. That's
Yeah.
why I do feel like I can connect. I have been a youth pastor before. I went to Asbury College, now university, but the Sunday after I graduated, because I graduated on a Sunday. It was actually Mother's Day. So I told Mom, here's your gift. You have a college graduate. The next Sunday, a dear mentor of mine, she's now with Jesus. She said, Brandon, can you come help me with the youth? And
Yeah.
I said yes. There was no hesitation. It wasn't even like, let me think about it. Soon after that, she got the horrible news that she had cancer. And when she was not physically able, and believe me, she's a saint. She pushed through it beyond measure. She
Yeah.
kind of said, Brandon, can you take the lead on this?
Mm.
And I did that for a few years. I remember being in high school myself.
Yeah.
Definitely not the most popular. I participated in sports, but it wasn't like, hey, my name's up on the rafters. I just played because I loved the game.
Yeah.
And the students that came into the youth group were ones that weren't with the cliques. They were ones that just needed loved on.
Yeah.
And that really helped me. And so when I came into probably a year and a half after I graduated college, I had the opportunity of working at Ashland Community and Technical College in the financial aid office. I had no clue about financial aid. I knew what a Pell Grant was. I knew what a
Sure.
student loan was. I could go 10 hours on just how to complete a FAFSA if we really want to. So I got the background of financial aid. I started there as just basically processing. I left there after 8 years being the assistant director. I learned leadership skills, time management skills. I learned a lot about the FAFSA that not a lot of people understand. I learned a lot about the financial aid processes, how loans work. I processed loans. I ran SAP appeals for if students didn't meet their satisfactory academic progress. I think it was just God preparing me to get me back out with people. I tell everybody now I'm never going back to an office. I can't
Yeah.
do it. So he prepared me with that knowledge, and now I get to get out and get to the student, get to the family before they come into that financial aid office where they saw me and said,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Now they can come in boldly and
That's
say,
right.
hey, I met with my KHEAA outreach counselor. They said that there's possibly a chance of work study where
Yeah.
I can now actually work and not have to worry about maybe borrowing student loans. I hate using the word expertise because I don't consider, I'm always learning. I have that knowledge and I'm now able to go to people, give them the resources that I think can possibly be a generational change in their family. And it's just, whew.
I sit and think about your role and the importance of it quite a bit. I certainly did when I was recruiting at schools.
Mhm.
I would go into a classroom and I would say, okay, juniors, seniors, how many of you are going to college? It would startle me at how few people would raise their
Yes.
hand.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So, how many of you know how you're going to pay for college?
Yeah.
And no hands, basically.
Correct. Correct.
Zero game plan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But in their defense, because I was one of those first generation, you don't have the example to follow.
No.
And I see your role from a biblical term found in I think it's 2 Corinthians 4 maybe talks about we don't want to be a stumbling block,
Yeah.
and there are just so many stumbling blocks
Yes.
already in place
100%.
that are hurdles, if you will. We're talking about high schools, and I'm thinking like field and track, and they have to jump over the hurdles. It's just one after the other already in place.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I see your role just so crucial as you're just pulling those out of the
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
and just they don't have to jump so high.
I
they can
appreciate that.
focus a little
Yes.
more. Giving away my age a little bit here for any of our audience. Within your career at KEAA, I was out of school. I wish I'd met you a few years sooner. And I'm not trying to put you on a pedestal, man.
Oh, no, I understand.
Biblically speaking, I know where we stand in the
Yes.
hierarchy of things, and
Sure.
I just
Sure.
know you could have been great to help me. Somebody that was just so clueless, and I had a few people, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I know there's students benefiting from you,
Thank
and
you.
keep up the great work.
I hope so.
Many families, they know and they talk about often how confusing or how difficult to understand financial aid, FAFSA. You know, we don't want to talk about that dirty word, FAFSA. But what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions to financial aid that
Yeah.
you've heard or
Hmm.
that you'd want to share with our audience today?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And several misconceptions, honestly, is well, if my parents put their information on the FAFSA, then that means they have to pay for school.
Mm,
So many parents are concerned. My son's asking for my information. We can't afford to go to college, and that's the complete opposite. The FAFSA actually gives the student the opportunity
yeah.
to go to college. That's a big misconception. Also, you kind of alleviated to using the analogy of a hurdle.
Yeah.
I think the FAFSA almost is like the hurdle of the steeplechase. When you jump
Mm,
over it, then you jump in, and there's a spot where there's water,
yeah.
and they're jumping in. They have to do that little bit of an extra type of hurdle to even be able to continue running. It makes people so nervous to get in there and to do the FAFSA
Yeah.
because they don't understand it. And honestly, if you've not been in the field of financial aid, you can't understand it. It is so difficult. You're afraid to put your information,
Yeah.
even though that tax information gets pulled into the FAFSA automatically from the IRS. So it's exactly what you already submitted. It makes parents nervous. And if I could be even totally honest and transparent, those that live in Appalachia that might not have a large income are the ones that worry the most.
They are. Yeah. I would
And
wholeheartedly agree with that.
and they're the ones that are going to benefit from it most.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that first generation, you've said that word a couple times today. I was fortunate enough, my mom went to college, so she helped me do the FAFSA. So we sat down together. It was back in the day, it used to be on paper, which was crazy. Now it's all online,
Yeah.
but we would do that together. I even continue to this day. I go in and pretend to be a student, like I'm going to go to grad school
Yeah.
and do a FAFSA so that I know what it feels like to be the student. I do that every year because I know how to tell them how to do it, but I want to also remember what it's like being in those shoes. I mean, I've been out of high school. Let's not talk about how many years, but I can remember being nervous, figuring out, am I going to even be able to afford to go to college?
Yeah.
And that's what these students, that's what these families worry about. And you said like, I'm either going to go to work or I'm going to just stay home.
Yeah.
A lot of my students will say, I'm gonna go to trade school. I said, dude, sign me up. I'll go to
Yeah.
trade school with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the route now. It's like, man, what if I would have done that
Yeah.
30 years ago and been like, maybe I could have become a welder. These hands, too soft. Not gonna be I'm
These
not built.
hands. Yeah. There's no calluses on
No,
these.
no, I'm not built for manual labor. Like my manual labor is carrying publications into my high school. So
Sure, buddy. Sure.
and filling up the gas tank in my car. I'm like, guys, you could get this paid for.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think what's interesting too, and Joseph, you might know a little bit about this too, is sometimes those kids that want to go into trades, their parents have, and their parents are making really good money. They don't have that disposable income to actually send them.
Yeah.
They make do, they make really good money. Well, the FAFSA ends up saying we're loan only when they don't truly have the money that they should receive. And so we have scholarships with KHEAA with the state now that literally doesn't even take a look at what they're eligible for. It literally talks about what program they're in. If a dad's a welder, 90% of the time that son is going to become a welder, or the mom's a nurse, daughter's going to become a
Sure.
nurse. And
Yeah.
so those are good incomes.
Yeah.
But with the cost of living continuing to go up and salaries not matching that,
That's right.
it does create, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And it almost, by doing the FAFSA, it almost sometimes creates more questions than it does answers.
Those middle income families that
Yes.
maybe they had a lot of mouths to feed too, or they didn't, and the income just wasn't very high. I
Yeah.
often referred to as having a benefits cliff.
Yeah.
So they're just right at the edge. They're not going to get the benefits, even though
Yeah.
they're the families that often need them the most.
Yes. Amen.
I have such respect for the working mom and dad that are just trying to
Yeah.
make ends meet. And
Yeah. Me too.
if you were to ask my students, the parents of my students, they know. Like, I was
Hmm.
working for them. Two things.
Yeah.
You mentioned a few scholarships out there through KHEAA. Talk to our audience a little bit about what is KHEAA, who is
Yeah.
KHEAA, and what
Yeah.
does KHEAA stand for, and
Yeah.
what are some of those scholarships that you talked about? Maybe briefly talk about a few of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, KEA in long form is the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, but the best way that I describe KEA is we are the state agency that helps students go to college and help students go to college with funding. When students and families do that FAFSA, and if they're eligible for what we call a federal Pell Grant. Now, kind of for our audience that might not understand the financial aid lingo or a Pell Grant, that's federal funds. So that's literally free federal funds to help students go to school. Well, in the state of Kentucky, if a student is a Kentucky resident and they go to a Kentucky college, they actually may receive a CAP grant, which is College Access Program grant. And so if they have that Pell eligibility, then they have a chance to either get a $2,500 grant for 2-year colleges and a
Yep.
$5,300 grant for 4-year colleges. Right now, the max Pell grant is $7,395. Well, you put that 5,300 on it for a student to go to Morehead State or EKU or Alice Lloyd or UPike. That's $13,000 roughly
Yeah.
already in the bag to help them. When your student is in high school from freshman year through senior year, based on their GPA, they're
Yep.
earning a KEYS scholarship. So a Kentucky Education Excellence Scholarship. And yes, it's been around for a while. I even received it. Thankful
Sure.
for it every single day.
Yeah.
And it's a game changer because students could, at least if they just maxed out on GPA and a qualifying ACT score, they're looking at $2,500 a year in KEYS money. You throw that with, for private schools in Kentucky, we have the Kentucky Tuition Grant. That's now $3,500.
Yeah.
So that lump sum, you think about it, almost $19,000 roughly. And I'm using real quick math there. Not a math major, I'm professing today, but you're looking at $18,000 to $19,000 already. The concern is that is only a drop in the bucket sometimes for how expensive education is.
Yeah. How it
And that,
definitely can be. That's for sure.
most of the time, if a student were to go to a community and technical college in Kentucky, they're going to get money back.
Yeah.
They're going to get a refund. They're going to be able to pay for gas, food. They won't even have to really worry about a student loan at all, and honestly shouldn't if they're getting that kind of aid. But if they were to go to a private school, and I love our private schools in Eastern Kentucky, they've got programs to where a student can literally go debt free.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that. But that's not across the board
That's
in the
right.
entire state. I think those schools do understand Appalachia. Many of them that work there are from Appalachia,
Yeah.
which I love. I love those souls. There's such good souls
Yeah.
at those schools. And I could brag on people from all other schools.
Of course.
I don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
I'm not going to take away from other schools, but that's my region. So I've got those relationships built. For a student, like a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to go to trade school, so I'm not going to college. Well, that's kind of one and the same, really, because of how our community and technical college system is set up. They can actually go to a Big Sandy or an Ashland Community and Technical College or a Hazard, do a welding program, do an HVAC program, electricity. And now we have a scholarship that's come in, it's probably about 6 years old now. It's the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. And if a student is in an eligible program, it could pay up to full tuition, not even looking at whether the student's loan only or Pell Grant eligible, CAP grant. It's a last dollar scholarship, meaning it'll cover the rest of what's ever remaining of that tuition. So essentially, it could be free college on the tuition side of things, and it's truly been a game changer. It was meant really for students to go back to school, like non-traditional students that wanted to
Yep.
do a career change, but it's really turned in to those 18-year-olds wanting to get a welding certificate, a electrician certificate, HVAC, nursing, radiography. The list goes on and on. We've got like 60 pages of programs throughout the state that work ready scholarship can go towards for associate degree programs.
Any resources out
Mm-hmm.
there, and especially for our Kentucky folks, right?
Yes.
Oftentimes, I feel like there is a lapse, and to no fault of anyone, between educating the student and educating the parent.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there are a lot of questions that get answered in the classroom, but they just never make it home,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
No, it's true.
And I know that was a case for me
Mm-hmm.
specifically. There are a lot of parents that don't know how it all works, and they're relying on the student. Well, the student, they've got short attention spans. I was one, you were one. Nothing against them. They're playing sports. They
Yeah.
forget by the time they get home. It happens. Let's transition. I've got a few
Yeah.
questions from our audience today, hoping you can answer just a couple of those. Can scholarships that you receive while in high school, can those affect scholarships that you're eligible for when
Mm.
applying with the FAFSA?
Great question, and that is a crucial question actually when we talk about what kind of eligibility that students can have when they go to college. For instance, the FAFSA, the Pell Grant, the student is going to get all of the Pell Grant based on their enrollment. So whatever they're eligible for, even if they're full-time or part-time, they are going to get the eligibility that they can for that enrollment. That money cannot be reduced in any way for that purpose. Um, with the CAP grant, can the CAP grant be reduced? Absolutely. It is a state grant, but we have this very fancy term in financial aid called cost of attendance.
That's right.
And basically, with my students, I call it a sticker price. They're gonna have a sticker price, and then the financial aid is the coupon. So let's see how many coupons we can get.
I
Well,
love that. That is
thank
that's like, why did I never think of that? Dang on it.
you. Well, hey, if you come back into the financial aid world, you got
Hey,
something to take with you.
you never say never, buddy. You never know
Exactly.
what God might have in store.
100%. 100%. With that cost of attendance, it allows for what we call unmet need.
Yep.
And so it can only go so far because at times there's certain aid, and I don't want to get into the sticks, but there's some aid that can't go over that cost of attendance. Now, scholarships. Students worry, well, I got a scholarship from Ben and Jerry, I got a scholarship from Coca Cola, and then also my school's giving me a scholarship like a memorial scholarship.
Yep.
Most of the time at most schools, you can get as many scholarships as possible. Now, what it really breaks down to when students aren't sure what scholarships to take versus not to take is when there's an athletic scholarship, an academic scholarship, they qualify for multiple ones. And there's another fancy word called stacking. And I'm not a fan of the stacking game, but I also understand that's institutional money and they want to spread it out for more students. I mean, and I think that's important,
Sure.
but so there might be some institutional aid that they're not able to, like, there's one academic one for this, but then also they meet this one based on their financial aid eligibility. They might cancel out.
Yeah.
KEAS money is something that will not be reduced. So now some schools, if they offer a student full tuition, they might use that KEAS as part of that full tuition
Hmm.
and then reduce the amount of a scholarship again to spread the wealth. To spread the wealth. Now, if you were to go to the
And
community,
make the biggest impact possible.
correct,
Yeah.
make the biggest impact, yes. And so a school like the community and technical college, you get your financial aid, and that KEAS money comes, you're getting all that KEAS money back in a refund if you don't owe any more bill. And
Sure.
that's how different
Yeah.
schools work. Now, something that I think is really interesting, and students and families don't realize this, is sometimes if they win a scholarship locally, the local foundation or the organization sends it directly to the school. Well, when they do that, that has to be reported on their aid offer. It has a chance to adjust the financial aid on that cost of attendance because it can't, remember, some of those can't overlap. But I always recommend if there's a scholarship that they literally give the check to the student and they're in the school or they mail it to the student, I'm telling them keep that, don't report it.
Yeah.
Because that is money they can use for a laptop.
Yeah.
It's college expenses. It doesn't mean that it has to go to tuition or parking fees.
Yeah.
It's going to help them get a new comforter for their dorm room.
For that very reason, my wife and I created the Little Scholarship, and
Awesome.
it is a cash scholarship
Beautiful.
to a student. And I've had parents or staff from my office ask, well, why do I do cash? Isn't that risky? It is. It is.
It is.
But I kind of view it as similar to, it sounds a little weird, but believing in the gospel. It's a little risky, but I fully commit to that.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we have fully committed to the idea of helping Appalachians get educated.
Amen.
I received a wonderful character-based scholarship. The issue I had with my scholarship was it paid for anything I owed just about. I think it was up to like 12 grand a year.
Probably.
And I was full Pell. It would pay my entire bill, but it wouldn't let me get any money in my pocket, right?
Correct.
So what about the fridge? What about the microwave?
Amen.
What about the gas? Because I had a part-time job.
Agree.
Super blessed. Super
100%.
thankful. Changed
100%.
my life.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a little bit of that benefits Cliff in a different perspective, right? That people just don't consider. They think college is paid for. Got a fun question for you. Imagine your best financial aid tip is a catchy song. What would the name of the song be, Brandon? Or if you're brave enough, what would the chorus be? I'm going to challenge you.
Oh my goodness. There's some good ones actually. We actually had a at one of our staff meetings, we did a training and we took 3 songs in 3 different styles. And so we talked about tuition in one of them. We talked about keys money in one of the songs. And so we literally changed the words to songs.
Man, you almost got a whole album there.
What was crazy was our bosses were like, okay, this is going to be silly. Come on now. We're given 20 minutes to do this.
Yeah.
There's 3 groups. I'm telling you what, there could be an album coming. It was that good. There's a lot of talent in the outreach counselors. We've got more than just, we can talk about financial aid.
Okay.
But I think a theme song for financial aid, and this one's the first one that came to my head.
Okay.
Because I love music. I've got music in my car nonstop.
Sure.
But I'm gonna go with a little T Swift here, and "Shake It Off," because
yes,
you know, Joe. In every question in financial aid can literally be answered with "it depends."
Yep.
And
oh my gosh.
And you just got to shake it off. You just got to shake it off. It's going to be okay. We're going to figure out the next step, know, and just go with it.
I can appreciate that. And because I would have parents call my office mad, just taking a year to get a FAFSA finalized.
Yeah. Yep.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. We got you.
Let's shake it off. I'm buddy. It's sticking with me. All right.
Awesome.
Another fun question.
Okay.
If financial aid were a superhero, what superpower would it have, and why?
Wow. So I'm a big fan of Marvel. Okay. I've loved the Marvel movies. So, big fan of the Avengers. So like putting them all together. So financial aid in a nutshell is very complex, but yet at the same time, it can make a huge impact.
Yeah.
So with those 2 things in mind, it just came up. Like I was going a different way, and then it just brought it back. I feel
like God's giving you a sermon right now, and I'm just going to settle in.
Yes, he might, and I'll go grab my notebook and I'll start getting it down there. Like I think about Mr. Bruce Banner.
Ooh.
Dude had some issues. He was very complex. He was a scientist. He knew all the ins and the outs. So someone may know the ins and the outs of the financial aid. But then, let's just be real. Parents have that tipping moment. Boom, turns into the hawk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big old green,
That's right.
huge, and larger than life size hawk smash. Hawk smash. But if you think about the Marvel movies, Dr. Banner had a soft spot.
Mm.
And that's what allowed him to come back from that anger. That allowed him to actually, even though the anger wasn't good anger, it helped them beat the enemy.
Yeah.
But it would take someone like Black Widow to say, "Hey, Bruce, I got you. I
Mm.
got you." And I think our role as Christians is to be like, "Brother, sister, I got you."
That's right.
Because we've had moments in our Christian walk
Yep.
that we wanted to become Hawk,
My son's a
and
big fan of Hulk, by the way, my
I
4-year-old.
love it.
So,
That's see right there.
yeah,
It
it
was
was
meant
meant
to
to be.
be. Absolutely. And parents get upset about, well, why do they need my taxes? Why do they? It's okay. We
Yep.
got you. And you can make, like, the Hawk made a huge impact. As a Christian, we can make a huge impact, but also living out my calling as an outreach counselor, I have the ability to make a huge impact. But it's not on my own. I'm not making the impact. It's the resources that have become available through our state, through our federal government, and I'm just being the one to tell people about them. I haven't done anything on my own
Sure.
to say, now, guess what? You get to go to college. I
That's
mean,
right.
I've had parents cry when they realize that their child gets to go to college.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been there.
Burst
I've
into
been I've been
tears.
I've been crying with them.
I had a parent message me on Sunday, and she was like, "I'm messaging on Sunday. You don't have to message me back, but I just had a question." And I was like, "Can I call?" And we have the I mean, it's part of my faith. My faith serves is so huge in my life, and so I will never deny that's not part of why I do what I do. But there's hawk moments within the financial aid world, and for those students and those parents, they're having hawk like moments too, because they don't know what the answer is. And we come along, we'll be a Black Widow or in the movies a Scarlett Johansson, and say, "Hey, Bruce, it's good. We're good. Now, let's see what the next step is." And sure enough, it might be a free education.
I was considered homeless youth, so my situation was very complicated. But
Sure.
what about those students that consider themselves to be homeless,
Yeah.
but based on the federal government, they're not? Any advice for them to help them out?
Absolutely. So we do have a lot of situations, especially in Appalachia, but I know it's global. It's global.
It is.
I mean, but we're talking on a micro level here with the state of Kentucky and especially our region. What we sometimes think of as being homeless, a high school district, and the FAFSA sometimes will have a different definition of what we actually consider homeless.
Yep.
And so there may be a student that lives with their friend, goes what I call couch surfing.
That's
And
right.
I know, and it's unbelievable how many students experience this. It's blown my mind. And but like couch surfing, and they don't know where their parents are. They might see their parents once in a blue moon. The school district has basically a homeless liaison that can actually within their system indicate that they are considered homeless. And kids get nervous. Well, if I'm considered homeless, what does that mean? It's just basically a benefit to the student that they are able to put that, because what happens if that student is considered homeless, that makes the student actually independent.
Yep.
And what happens is that's not going to require them to get parents information. And let's be real, let's remove the tape. A lot of these situations that these students are, the reason they're in what they're in is because of abuse, drugs, situations that they don't need to find themselves in.
Yeah.
And by contacting a parent, they actually might be putting their life in danger.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen it.
It's so hard. I don't know how many situations, Joe, sitting down with a student in a library or a computer lab, and I'm saying, okay, who do you live with? That's always my first question because I can tell a lot of times they're reluctant to say.
Oh yeah, and there's a level of shame even to this, right?
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
nobody really talks about, and
Correct.
the student feels alone. They
Yeah.
feel isolated,
Yeah.
and no one knows what they're going through. And
Yeah.
I know what that's like,
Yeah.
obviously, but I know what it's like on both ends, right?
Right. Right.
So yes, absolutely,
I can't maybe understand their situation because I have been very blessed. My parents have been married for
sure,
almost 41 years. I was raised in a good home, Christian home. Thank the Lord.
yeah.
That's why I'm here today. But I try to talk to that student and say, okay, who do you live with? They'll say, well, I live with my grandma sometimes. I live with my aunt. I'm like, okay, okay. I said, well, let me ask you this. And I'm not trying, and I always say, I'm not trying to pry,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to get you the best opportunity. I said, have you talked to your parents lately? And I'll even say biological parents because sometimes they'll say, oh, yeah, I live with my mom and dad. And their mom and dad's their grandparents. And they
and
call
and
them
and and have been
and have been.
for you know my grandparents took me in at the age of 4,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
before I became a homeless youth at 17. But yeah, I mean, the only parents I ever knew.
right. Those grandparents have stepped up to the plate. And but that brings me, I could even go another level of that with parents, the grandparents being of 80, 75, and 80 years old, not understanding half of what is going on in that high school.
That's
They're
right.
I mean, they're so far removed. And but so I really just sit down and talk
Or
to that
they're like my
student.
grandparents and never even went to high school. Sorry, I just
Right.
had to throw that
No,
that
no, that's a good
tidbit
point.
in.
That's a good point. And so I'll use an example, and I won't give any names or anything, of course, but my first year at KHEAA, there was a very popular young lady at a high school. And the counselor came up to me and said, Brandon, if you don't mind, me, you, and her are going to do the FAFSA together in my office. I said, okay, no problem. I'll do whatever we need to do. And so we started to talk. And this young lady who I thought had everything together, had good grades, had just a glowing smile. Everybody knew her. She was so nice. Ends up, she had a restraining order against her dad where they couldn't even come in contact with
Yeah,
one another. And it put me back, Joe. Like,
yeah,
I was like, there's no way. You're you. Like, I didn't
oh
say
yeah,
that out loud, but I'm like, I would have never saw that in a million years.
yeah. And that's why your role is so important, because you're filling the gaps
Trying to.
that most people will never even know about, Brandon.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so I talked to this student and it led me, which is I mean, it's a neat little story, but after she was able to get to go to college, she she even got a scholarship to cheerlead. Like it was awesome. We got her FAFSA the way it should be. We
Sure.
called the school. I called the school on her behalf. And I'm like, hey, got this situation. Talk to me. Because I know there's such thing as
Oh yeah,
professional judgment.
that's right.
It's in financial aid where an administrator can make a decision on the student's behalf for them. And so and that's from my experience in financial aid. So I was just
Yep.
kind of filling it out. Because of that situation, Joe, I literally every year I go to the Frisky conference in Kentucky, Victory Over Violence. It
Yeah.
is the Family Resource Youth Service Center.
Oh yeah.
And I go every summer and I always tell my bosses, I'm signing up for this one. If you want someone else to go, just take my name out, but I'm signing up for it.
Sure.
And then shout out to my sister-in-law. She's actually a Frisky coordinator at Blazer. Shout out to Brittany there. But
Yeah.
I get to go to this conference and I don't learn financial aid. I learn about how to meet the student and to recognize this student may have an issue. They're just not telling me to how to read the room.
Yep.
Because to me, my most important part of my job and aspect is that relationship building. I want to
I
be
would agree.
trusted. I want to be trusted. I try to respect the family so much and say, you don't have to tell me, I understand, but without telling me, tell me that we can put on that FAFSA, or I can call my friends at Alice Lloyd's Financial Aid Office, my friends at Morehead State, and
Sure.
say, hey, what do we got here?
Yeah.
And then to help that student. And yeah, you use the word shame. It's scary for them to talk about it
Oh yeah.
because maybe they never have,
Yeah.
and they've
Yeah.
never had an outlet.
Yeah.
It's just been unspoken.
And they're in this crucial time in their life
Yeah.
already, and there's
Yeah.
just so much going on, and they're being pulled, and
Yes.
it's confusing, and I mean, so you add that anxiety on
Right.
top of
Right.
those having to pull back the onion,
Yes.
and
100%. Great
gosh,
analogy.
yeah,
And so taking that back to homelessness, I would encourage a student to let someone know, first and foremost, at your
yeah,
school. Your Frisky office has anything if you need deodorant, if you need a new pair of shoes, don't be ashamed to go in there and ask. But also find somebody that you can talk to, a confident, trustworthy person, and I promise you they'll be in your corner. And if that's me, let's go. Let's go, because I'm in your corner. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to do everything I can. And as well as the other outreach counselors, this is what we do. This is why
yeah,
we do it. And so, like a homelessness, let's see if we can get it on paper. But if not, we can get that professional judgment and say, I don't know the whereabouts of my family.
yeah,
And the one of the things that's good about the FAFSA is they have a provisional independent now, and they list about 8 to 9 reasons of why someone that used to be called unusual circumstances,
that's
but
right,
then now they call it special circumstances. I never liked the word unusual, never liked that because everybody's in some type of circumstance.
that's right,
I didn't like that at all, but I would say, I don't like this word, but this is what it's called. And and I'll look at a student and I can tell, I can kind of, they're fidgety a little bit. I'm like, I want you to look at that page. You don't have to, and you could quote me probably 1,000 times
yeah,
if I was on video. You don't have to tell me, but tell me if there's one on that list.
yeah,
And then they'll sometimes they'll be like, yes, or they'll be like, actually a couple of them, and sometimes they'll even just point it out to me.
yeah. We've had those moments in my
And
office.
it's tough, and I'm like, okay. And most of the time when I do a provisional independent, I don't just say, okay, here's independent, let's go.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and make a call to that financial aid office so that they can be aware of that student. It can be flagged, and then we can get the ball rolling. Because in financial aid, that there's going to be more hurdles
oh yeah,
for
yeah.
that professional judgment.
It's gonna take
So
a little
it's
bit.
almost it's going to take a little bit, but if we can assure the student, assure that grandparent that's been taking care of that child that, hey, we got your kid.
Yeah.
We're gonna take care of them.
It's almost like I compare it now. So I was in the insurance world before I went to Alice Lloyd, but I compare
Mm-hmm.
the two very similar. It was a very similar feeling. So someone's house would burn down.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they would have insurance, and I'd get to tell them it's going to be okay.
Right.
It's
Right.
all right. We're going to take care
Yep.
of you. My
Yep.
gosh, to see that relief. But
Yes.
also, I mean, I'm a little selfish. It felt good.
Right.
And it
It
felt
does.
good to be serving in my calling that you talked
Yes.
about, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
even this podcast is born out of that calling on my life to
I love
combat
it.
poverty, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically even in Appalachia. I get to do it every single day, and stories like this.
They deal exactly with what your mission
Yeah.
with this and poverty. Like that's what they see every day.
And they do, mine did at least. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure we all mess up. We all, say or do stuff we
Yeah.
shouldn't. And me specifically, but they did a great job. Dignity's the word I use a lot on this
Agree.
show. They tried every way possible to honor me, to keep
Really.
my dignity intact, while also walking along with me, serving me, helping me, even with shoes, waiting till the end of the day
That's right.
to call me down and say, hey, we
Mm-hmm.
got you a pair of shoes.
Correct.
I got to take them straight from their office to the school bus.
Yeah.
And they never saw the tears that I had to try to hide
Sure. Yeah.
by getting a name brand shoe, and I'm sitting there like hovering over them on my way home.
Mm.
But I also don't want everybody on the school bus to
To
see,
know. Yeah. To
and
see
they'll be
that.
like, why does he have brand new shoes? That's weird."
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah.
it holds a special place in my heart. Give me the quick traditional route to applying for financial aid. What does that look
Yeah,
like?
definitely. Yeah. So a traditional way to basically apply for financial aid is when your student or you, maybe you're thinking about going back to school, is to simply fill out a FAFSA. Now, the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's a free online application that you will put in your basic information, your legal name, your social, your date of birth. You'll put in all of that information, and it actually will pull in your tax information. So let's use the 25-26 school year as our example. That will actually pull in the 2023 tax return, which actually is helpful because we don't have to worry about getting that 24 done really quick. We've got that 23 already in the bag. And so if a parent or a student, which now both need to have a FSA ID, they'll create that, they'll let it go out to the Social Security Administration, get confirmed, then they go in, they'll go to studentaid.gov, and they'll click start new form, and they will fill out simple questions like what's your name, have are you a legal resident of Kentucky, are you married, different things like that. And then you get to the finance part, it pulls in the finances for you. Then the student will put in what colleges they want to go to or what they're considering. You can even do up to 20 colleges. I really like that. That's new. It used to be 10. So you can literally put up to 20. And what happens is that FAFSA, when it gets signed and submitted, it goes to KHEAA, so we can process any state aid that you may be eligible for. It goes to the federal government, Department of Education, so that it can be processed. And it also goes to the colleges that they've listed on the FAFSA. From there, the colleges now are able to create what we call an aid offer, being able to see exactly what you're eligible for. Typically, an aid offer will show grants, if eligible, Keys money for the state of Kentucky, also the CAP grant that we mentioned earlier, possibly a Kentucky tuition grant for a private school, as well as the institutional scholarships that are offered through the college, and then also work study. It'll put all that down there to see what the student's eligible for. Keep in mind, it will list student loans. They're going to put student loans on there to cover the rest of the bill, basically. You do not, you do not have to take student loans. Student loans are not required. Can they help pay for school? Sure. Just like if I got a loan at the bank to go redo my roof, 100% it can help. But that's when we want to focus on the work study because that can relieve some student loan debt. We don't have to go to the most expensive school in the state of Kentucky.
Amen.
You can go to the most affordable colleges in the state of Kentucky, the KCTCS, get out of there for free, make $80,000 to $90,000 a year after 18 months.
Big fan. Absolutely.
So, and I mean, there's college presidents that I know that started out at a community and technical college. Find your place. And I could go, I mean, that's a podcast for another time about.
Well, no. Let me do this. Let me do this. My next question to you was going to be: let's say you get the perfect scenario, and I'm sure you have, my friend, because I know the good work you do. Let's say you get the perfect scenario of a student that you know is struggling with poverty,
Mhm.
but they want to change their family tree.
Yes.
They don't want to settle. They want better for them and their future family.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for that student that is
Mm.
clueless, their first generation college student? Give me what's your quick pitch to them.
Yeah. Man, let's write a book. Let's
Yeah.
let's write a book on that. Well, I was with a group of students today, and I simply ask, what do you want? What are you looking for? What do you see yourself doing? And I had this little short side note story. I was working the state fair. We always do the state fair each and every year. We held up a booth in Louisville, and I had a kid come up to me that wanted to do a program in Alabama for the space program. Well, this older gentleman came up behind him, and he literally looked at me and he said, "Please tell me my son's not talking about that space program."
Mm,
And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Yes, sir. We're talking to see if Key's money can go there." He said, "Well, he's not going there. I'm paying. He's going to be a lawyer, and I'm paying for his education." That kid's face, and this was a kid not in poverty, but I want to use that as an example. This
sure.
kid went to a private school in Louisville, so, but the kid's face was dejected. A dejected face can be on any student. So I look at these students and I'm saying, what do you want for yourself? And then I go, what are your interests? What do you like to do? Can you go in and weld something together without even thinking about it? Can you help build a house? Can you do carpentry? Can you do construction? Are you good with numbers? Do you want to be an accountant? Like, just use the whole gamma. But I ask them what their interests are. And I'm like, okay, here are the options that are available to you.
Yeah.
Now, there's sometimes when a student may say, I want to be a doctor. And you know, deep down in your soul, they're not going to make med school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's hard
Oh yeah.
without, because I don't want to crush somebody's dreams. That's my
Yeah.
last, it's
There's
the
a
last thing
fine line. There's a fine
yes,
line of being a reality check and trying
right.
to and being in their best interest, right?
Correct. Correct.
There's a thin line of a
Mm-hmm.
reality check and just crushing, right?
Yes. And so I just, I try to get on their level.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here is the FAFSA. You fill it out. This is what it's going to tell you that you probably are going to be eligible for.
Yep.
But they're so concerned about what their family's going to think. And it hurts. It hurts me to see that, well, they're just going to leave. They're going to leave the home and they're never
Yeah.
coming back. But then when I look at the schools that I serve, the communities that I serve, you have successful people that have gone to college, gotten a degree, and where do they end up? Back here
That's
making
right.
the community better.
Yeah.
But they can't see the forest in spite of the trees.
Yeah.
I can because I've seen it happen. I have examples of students that have done that.
Yeah.
But in that moment, that child or that mother, that grandmother, that dad is like, I don't know about this for my boy or
Oh
don't know
yeah.
about this for my daughter. And they're scared too, even if it's, and I understand that. My parents cried when they dropped me off to college. That's a big deal. But that's why I put that community and technical college out there so much. Get your feet wet. See what these classes are like. Take maybe a dual credit class when they're in high school.
For sure.
Get an idea. Go ahead and get some certificates while in high school. Get your CNA. Get a welding certificate. Get an auto body certificate. They've got a job for them right when they get out of high school. They might end up finding themselves starting a career one place and then going big the next. But they just can't see it because it's always been one way.
So generational poverty is
Mm-hmm.
real.
Yes, it is.
And even in my family specifically,
Mm-hmm.
it was very real. And I want to honor and respect and love my family. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or
Yeah.
anything, but those were real conversations of, Joe, you're going to end up just like the rest of your family.
Yeah.
You're going to come running, begging back. You're never going to have a real job. You're not going to go to college.
Yeah.
You're going to be just like the rest of your family. This is
Yeah.
where you belong.
Yeah.
Those were real conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you look at that, that's a reality. But yes,
Yeah.
you have these students that are oftentimes they're not given freedom to figure out what they want to do. And I'm not saying, hey, let's be irresponsible. Let's still
100%.
let's
100%.
instill core values in our
Yeah.
children, but
Yeah.
God has a calling
Yeah.
for every one of us.
Every one of us.
And respectfully, mom, dad, you probably don't know what your son or daughter's calling is.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
probably don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But your big emphasis today has been on relationships.
Yeah.
So I spent the last 5 minutes before I logged on for our episode today. I'm trying to figure out how to do this on camera. Hanging up this photo. So what in the world is this photo? So here's the lamb. Here's the one. The one.
Yeah.
And from a biblical standpoint, if someone doesn't know, I pray that they search that out and find it for themselves. This podcast, my role as a financial aid director, I helped everyone that came in my office, but
100%.
I was there. I'm trying to do this on camera. It's terrible. I can't do the opposite thing. There we go. Okay. So this is Jesus going for the one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point in this podcast. That
That's right.
any career I have, my calling, as you've mentioned a bunch, which I love and respect, it's for the one. And the point here is Jesus, he wants that relationship.
Yes, he does.
And these kids, they have an opportunity to form that relationship and find their calling.
Absolutely.
So who are we as parents, as guardians in my scenario, as a kid? Who am I today to tell my future kid what he's going to do? I'm your average Joe. Total pun intended.
No pun intended.
I'm just an average Joe. But the God of the universe has a calling for my son one day. I can't wait to help him see what it is. So let's do that. That's the challenge. Let's all work toward just being a helper.
Yeah.
We're not here to point and tell. We're here to help. And that's what organizations I like KHEAA, what they're doing, and your
100%.
role, and financial aid directors across the world. I love every one of you.
Oh, yeah.
So, Brandon, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for letting me take up far too much of your time.
No, you're good.
I do promise there's plenty I did not talk about that I wanted to. And like you said, maybe we need to do a part 2 in the future.
We'll do a part 2. Yeah.
For anyone that may have found this meaningful, maybe I've got a parent out there that finally got a question answered, or a student that is first generation and you were wondering how in the world you were going to make your dreams come true. I hope this episode helped you. If it did, do me a favor. Please subscribe to the channel. Share this episode. Like it, comment, subscribe. And please remember, keep telling stories. It's the difference maker, guys. We'll see you in the next episode.